so embarrassing. Second of all, I'm like, how in the world did this happen? I'm making more money than I did when I was working as a cashier at Kroger, and I'm in here bouncing checks.
Happy.
Well, what I realized was I didn't have a plan. And so I was making more money, but I was also spending more money than I ever had before. All those dinners and, getting a nice car and all those things. And eventually I realized, oh, I need to put some order here. Let me get a disciplined approach to how much I spend and how much I save. And so the other piece of that is, after you build your budget, you figure out, okay, how much am I going to spend? How much am I going to save? Then you also determine what I like to call risk tolerance. And that is, how aggressive should I get in my spending? How aggressive should I get in my saving? How aggressive should I get in my investments? And so oftentimes people ask me, well, how much should I put in the stock market? Or how much, should I get in a mutual fund? Or how much should I get in CDs? The answer is, it's individual by individual. And it's really dependent upon a few things. One, it depends upon those goals that we talked about before. How much time do you have? If you're earlier in your career, you can be much more aggressive on saving. You can take riskier investments. You can play into the stock market and take these wild swings because you have some years to come back. If you are trying to retire in 2 or 3 years, stock market may not be the place for you to put your money in because you could lose it all in a blink of an eye or win it back as well. Yes, sir.
Is it okay?
Please do.
Now you mentioned about the stock market.
Yep.
And I don't know if everybody is dealing with that, but how soon should a person look at investing in the stock market, especially like once you get out of school, you get married? Should it be something you should look for at right away? Or should it be something, I think some people look at it as something that I should do later?
Yep. So, and I'm going to get ahead of myself. Can I come back to it in one slide?
Yes, you can.
My next slide I'm going to talk about.
All right, that's good.
So thanks for teeing that up. Didn't even have to pay him to do that. So we'll talk about that. So we'll talk about risk tolerance. The other piece of risk tolerance is if you're the sole breadwinner, you might have to be a little more careful on where I invest, where I save, where I spend, versus if there's 2 people in the house working, or if I have 4 kids that I have to provide for versus I'm an empty nester and I don't have any more children that I have to think about. Those are things that we want to consider. The other piece of that is I like to create, we talked about those goals. From a financial standpoint, I like my goals to be smart. And by that I mean be specific, be measurable, actionable, relevant, and timely. A SMART goal is specific. I want to save a lot of money. That is an aspiration. That's not a goal, right? I want to save $500. That's a specific goal. So when you make your goal, make the distinction. Right. Be specific. Then make it measurable, right? Measurable means that every day I can be tracking how am I getting to my goal, right? So every day you should be waking up saying, okay, I want to save $500. How much have I saved today? And that'll keep you on check of if every day, if I'm 50 cents, okay, I'm at $1 and now I'm at $2, oh, I'm back to $1 or I'm back to 50. It gives you an opportunity to kind of keep that guidepost. It's like when I was driving in this morning and I put the GPS, it let me know I'm an hour away, I'm 30 minutes away, I'm 10 minutes away. It gives me something to measure against. Actionable. Make a goal something that you have to do. It requires some sort of action or activity. Make it relevant. The reason why I say make it relevant is sometimes we may say, well, we have a goal. I'm trying to think of something that I can just make up. I have a goal that says, I want to, if I didn't have any children, I want to be able to have money to put my children through school. Well, that goal may not be relevant for me if I don't have kids, right? And so if it's a specific and measurable goal, also make it something that's relevant or realistic for you. You can also say the R could be realistic, meaning that if I have a goal of, I want to save $5 million, but $5 million may not be realistic for me in the near term, I'm not going to be as motivated and passionate about achieving that goal. If it's specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, or realistic, it's going to be more apt for me to stay with that. And then the last thing is make it timely. If any goal that you have financial should have a time bound to it. Hold yourself accountable. I want to save this amount of money by this time. And track against it and make sure that it's something that's realistic and relevant for yourself. Questions on that before we move?
So, to make it relevant to somebody, that means you should write it down.
Please. Yes. Yes.
And revisit it.
Absolutely.
On a timely basis.
Yes. Write it down, put it in your phone, put a reminder out there. So I'll give you a couple examples. I know people that have put a calendar invite on their phone or in their portfolio or wherever you have, and it says, on this day, put this money in the bank. Right?
That's good.
And so you get a reminder to, I need to be doing this. Another one is, you guys have probably already heard this story, but Jim Carrey was you guys know Jim Carrey, right? The Living Color and all the other crazy stuff that he's done. At the beginning of his career, he was broke, living out of his car. And he wrote himself a check for, I think it was $10 or $20 million, addressed it to himself and put it away. And after he continued to work in his career, made his first major movie, he was able to cash that check to himself. It was a goal that he had, that he knew he wanted to get to the point, at some point, to be able to cash that. So maybe that's another thing that could be resonating for you. You say, you write a check, I want to take a trip to the Bahamas, I've always wanted to do that, and you write out a check for the trip to the Bahamas to yourself. And then over the course of the next year, you begin to put money away and plan for that to get there. And then it gives you that, just think about how exhilarating, how exciting that's going to be for you to catch that in a year or in a few months. So that's the other thing. The final piece on this point, when you construct your plan, the other thing that we're doing is we're being planful and we're being stewards of what God has given us. One of the things that will disappoint God is when we don't take care of what he gives us. Right. And we know about the parable of the talents. When he gave 1 2, he gave 1 5, he gave 1 1, right? And the 5 went back and multiplied that and made it 10, and the 2 multiplied and took those talents and made it 5, and that 1 took that talent and buried it, right? And he came back to him and said, you could have at least put it in the bank and got some interest on this, right? And so God requires us to let our finances have life. He wants us to do that. Whatever point it is. He's not saying turn $1 into $1 million. He says whatever I give you, do something with it. So that's what we want to make sure we're doing. The other thing is, if we don't have a plan, oftentimes our giving in church will be limited because we overextend ourselves. And it's when you start getting through that plan, you start checking off, okay, what is a nice to have or a need to have, or what can I stop doing? And then some people begin to, as they get overwhelmed, and it's not because they are malicious or they're in this sinful state. It's just, I'm overwhelmed, I don't have enough money, I can't afford to tithe today, or I can't afford to pay those offerings today. But when you have that plan built out, then you can begin to allocate that up front. So let's get to, actually I think I have the next slide, I'll get to it.
Okay.
So we have our plan, and we talked about what do we do with our plan. We begin identifying what's going in, what's going out. So the first thing is, how much am I making? How much do I have in my savings? What do my investments look like? Those are the things that we can build off of. The other piece of that is, do I have any equity? So am I a homeowner, or do I have some sort of property, or do I have something that is making money on my behalf? Do I have mutual funds or bonds or something that is growing as an asset? Then I look at what we in accounting call, I shouldn't say we, I'm not an accountant, but in accounting they say liabilities. What money is going out. All the expenses. When I built my plan, and actually my wife and I we still have a plan. I can tell you right now what I'm going to spend in 3 months on the 3rd week in June. That's how detailed we build that plan out. The reason why I do that is because you'd be surprised. Go through an exercise through 1 day or 1 week and list out everything you spent money on. It will surprise you. It shocked me because I was like, wow, I'm spending $20 a day on lunch and breakfast, or this $5 a day here, or this $50 a month here. And then you'll begin to figure out, okay, where can I stop doing? Maybe if I pack my lunch instead of buying my lunch, I can save X amount. And if I don't go out to eat 4 times a week, I can save some money by cooking some meals and having some leftovers. And then that'll free me up for that trip to the Bahamas that I want to take in a little while. It's the needs versus desires as well. It's, do I need these new pair of shoes? Or do I just want these new pair of shoes? And then the other piece is, and I mentioned it, in business we have this thing what we call profit leakage. And it's like a leak in a ceiling or a wall where money is leaking out and we don't even know it. Right? We don't even realize that we are spending too much here or too much there, or I didn't realize that my cable bill had gotten up to $200. I didn't realize that my phone bill had gotten to this point. Maybe I should call them and renegotiate or tell them I'm leaving, put a little fear in them, and see all of a sudden what happens if I get a discount. And now I can save myself $50 a month to be able to do something else. Then the other piece of that is, after we identify what's going out, what's coming in, the final piece of that is, am I protecting my assets? So do I have some insurance on my house, on my life, on my car, on my loved ones, making sure that I'm protecting all that? Because the last thing we want to do is have a beautiful house or a beautiful car, and somebody comes and, or just the weather is bad and a tree falls on that car and I have no insurance to cover it. Now I'm back to square one. So Pastor asked the question, how do I know when I should start saving or investing? Here's the priorities that I like people to pursue, and it's been helpful for me when you figure out where should your money go first. Aggressively tackle debt out of the gate. That should be number one. And I tell people, before you get into the stock market, make sure you have paid off and paid down as much of your debt as you can. And I'll give you an illustration why. If you are maximizing in your 401k, 6%, or you're maximizing into your savings account, but you're only paying the minimum balance on your credit card, you will always have that credit card because all you're doing is always paying off that interest. So I'll give this an example. When I was coming out of college, I think at the point where I was putting like $200, $300, $400 a month into my savings and paying the minimum balance on my credit card. I flipped it. I put maximum onto my credit card, $200, $300, $400 onto my credit card, got that paid off, and then eventually I got to the point where I had no credit card and all of my excess money was able to put into my savings account. But if I'm minimizing there, now I end up paying so much more. So my point is, if you want to get into the stock market, make sure you have minimized all that discretionary debt before you get there. Because all you're doing at that point is, there's this thing called net worth. Anyone ever heard of that? And net worth is just really the equation of how much are your assets versus how much are your liabilities. Well, in that equation, your net worth is always going to be unbalanced if your liabilities are higher. So I want to get those liabilities down as far as I can so that everything else is a windfall. Does that answer?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I had a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Concerning stock market. So I work the TJ Maxx part-time.
Okay.
And I want to buy some stock into TJ Maxx. I heard it was $100 a share.
Okay.
So how does that work? If I put $100 and buy a share of stock in TJ Maxx, how does that work? What's the rest of the story? I mean, it'll make money for me, Will I make money? Will I lose money? I got some books I just got from the library.
Okay.
Because I want to know how this works as far as, because that to me is they make over $1 million a week
Oh, yeah.
where I work, one store. So if I could get $100, and then how would that, how can I make money from
Sure.
that?
So I'll give a little stock 101,
Okay.
if that's okay. And let me know if I'm going too slow or too fast. So that 100, let's use that TJ Maxx example, that $100. If you have $100, that gives you 1 share of stock,
Okay.
right? So basically, out of the, let's say there are 2 million shares, you have one of the 2 million shares. Now you have all of a sudden become a shareholder or a owner in TJ Maxx. The more of those that you buy, the more that shares that you have. So in that $100, what's going to happen in the stock market is over the course of the day, the value of that stock is either going to move up or move down. And a lot of things are going to be impacting that. Some of it's going to be the performance of TJ Maxx, right? Or the performance of Home Goods or Marshalls. They're part of this parent affiliation. And so as things happen in TJ Maxx, stores perform well, they release earnings, then that $100 may all of a sudden, as more people like you buy that stock, that takes the price up. And so it takes the value up. So if everybody in this room bought TJ Maxx tomorrow, $100, it would probably move up to about 101 or 102 or 103. As it moves up to $103, now you have just made $3 on your $100 purchase. So if you sold that, you could get $3 back plus your $100 that you got. If it goes down to 97, you just lost $3. So the point there is, whatever you buy it in at, you don't want to sell it until it has at least exceeded that. The other piece is, sometimes the performance is based on TJ Maxx. Sometimes the performance is based on something that happens in Greece that has nothing to do with TJ Maxx, has nothing to do with the retail industry, but it's just the stock market. So people will begin, as people sell, the price of that stock goes down. And so oftentimes, if you were to buy that $100 at TJ Maxx, I would say plan on keeping it for at least a year. So that it can appreciate. And then once you've made to the point, so once it goes up to 105 or 110 or 200 or 1,000, then you get comfortable with that risk tolerance. What's your risk tolerance? You want to make $5 or $50, whatever it gets to, you pull it out and you're good. Or reinvest it into somewhere else. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Isn't one of the first rules I heard about as far as investing, it must be something that you're willing to lose because of the volatility of the stock market. So I think a lot of people might have the misconception that if I just invest in stock, I'm going to make a lot of money. You can lose a lot of money.
Right.
So here's a good example. You guys remember the Enron thing a few years ago, right? Probably more than a few years ago, 10,
16 years, 15 years.
And so a stock can perform exceptional today and drop off tomorrow. Which is why, as you get into the stock market, not only, to Pastor's point, be willing to know that you could lose it all, but also that's why you diversify your purchases. If you work at TJ Maxx, I would say buy TJ Maxx stock, but also buy Target stock, buy Walgreens stock, buy CVS, so that if something bad happens in TJ Maxx, all my eggs aren't in one basket. And what happened at the Enron thing, as you guys know, is a lot of these employees had their entire pension, retirement, 401k stocks into one basket. And that basket was performing phenomenally. $500,000, $1 million, $10 million in that basket. And then the blink of an eye, that goes away. So last thing on stocks, if you want to play a stock market, it's so much easier to do it now than it was 15, 20 years ago. You can go on things like eTrade.com. where you can literally go in there and they do all the work for you. They do all the analysis, all the research, the buying and the selling, and you just pay a fee, a nominal fee, $10, $25, $50, whatever it is, based on how much you want to buy or sell. That's just one example. One of my favorite websites is Google, because I can type in whatever I want, and all of a sudden, 1,500 pages come up. So you can type in TJ Maxx stock, or type in stock market, or what stocks are performing well, and go from there.
Two more questions.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's say the stock drops from $100 to $30.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know when it's a good time to buy low like that? Because for $30 a pop, I can buy 3 times as many as she bought for.
That's right. That's a great question. So there's this thing called the 52-week high or low. And so if you go into any stock market, if you go to like yahoo.finance.com or E-Trade or anything that it'll show you the stock market, and you type in a company, when you type on that, it'll then have somewhere, they'll have a chart that says 52-week high or low. That'll let you know how that stock has been performing over the last year. Typically, you never want to buy when it's at its 52-week high or at its 52-week low. It's somewhere in that in-between is where you want to get to. Now, here's the thing. There's so many people that say, well, I can tell you exactly when, or they're lying.
Right.
So it's almost a science where if a stock has performed historically well, if you believe in the company, if the business infrastructure is solid, companies like Apple or Google, and companies that have been around for a while, then if it has fallen on hard times, you can get in and make a nice little windfall. I'll give you one more example on that, and then another question. Another time it's a good time to buy a stock is some stocks are high priced, and then they do something that they call a split. And what that is a stock price has appreciated to the point that it's gotten so high that it's tough for people to buy one share. Apple was there a few years ago, where it was like $500 a share. Warren Buffett, you guys know him. His stock, Berkshire Hathaway, it's like, I think, multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy one share of stock. He refuses to split that. But if a stock splits, which Apple did a few years ago, it took that $400, I'll just give you an example, $400 a share, it split, and then what it does is for everyone that had $400, they now get 4 shares for $100 each. So now the price just went down to $100. Great time to buy it because you know that company is going to go back up and you can get a windfall.
Okay. All right. So with that said, how you said within the 52-week high, that's when you want to buy somewhere in that range.
Yep.
How does the commoner know to trust that company that they're going to come back up, or stay away from that company because they may not make it? How does the common non-finance person?
Okay. Yeah. So that's a great question. Back to like E-Trade or Yahoo or any of these. Yahoo's a good one because they're unbiased. No one there is trying to get a commission. After you go to that 52-week high, then they have something called an analyst report. Again, remember I told you, they do all the work for you. This is easy. At the comfort of your home in your pajamas, you are just as good as someone on Wall Street. So in that analyst report, those analysts will rate that stock. And they'll say, this is a buy, this is a hold, this is a sell. And so they're giving you that movie Wall Street, Gordon Gekko, anybody remember that? They are Gordon Gekko for you. They are telling you, good time to buy this. And then they'll say, strong buy, great time to buy this, get in now. The other thing that they'll do is they'll show you the target that they think that stock price is going to get to over the next year. Where they'll say, TJ Maxx target may be 150. It's at 100 now. Great time to buy.
Gotcha.
So that's the thing that I would advise. The other piece is, when you get into the stock market and you want to play around, start with what we call penny stocks. And what a penny stock is it's about $1 or $2 get you a share. So for $100, and that's what I did when I was in college. I had $100 and I just bought 100 shares of some stock that was like $1 a share. It goes from $1 to $2. I just doubled my money, right? But if it goes from $1 to 50 cents, I've only lost $50 versus losing $5,000 of some highly aggressive stock. that make sense? Any more questions?
Yeah. So where do you find the penny stocks? 'Cause that is where I was going.
Okay.
Yeah.
So penny stocks, you could literally, a couple of things I would do is I would go into, if you go into this, if you go into the, like on any sort of stock trade, E-Trade actually would be a good one. You can go in there, you put a range of stock price. Put a range in there from $0 to maybe $10, and it'll list you every company on there that is in that range. That would be a great place to start.
And then you go to Yahoo and do your little search to see if it's a buy, super buy.
Yep.
Okay, now the last one was when we're talking about so that stock that you bought for $100 goes up to $200. Okay, so I have 10 shares of that stock. It went up in 1 month to $200. Should I sell 5 and keep the other 5 there and maybe buy something else so I can diversify?
Yep. So we gotta go back to how much time do I have and what's my starting point.
Okay.
So that's gonna always be your guide to let you know. It's like, and I know no one in here gambles, right? But it's
No.
like when you're at the table and you know when to fold them, right? At some point you gotta know when to cash in those chips. And it's when you're comfortable doing that.
Got you.
When you have hit your goal or when you are at the point where you say, I'm good, right? Then you can pull out. You can pull out half of it or a part of it or all of it. This is the thrill or the agony of the stock market, because every day you can watch it and you could lose and lose. At one point, I had lost thousands of dollars overnight because of one stock had one bad performance. And then, I saw, so Cardinal stock, I'll just give you Cardinal stock. Cardinal stock a year ago was over $90. It went down a few months ago to like 79. I was so mad. And now it's back up to 87.
Okay.
Right, so go figure. It's going to come back. It's just the timing piece of it. I know I'm over on time, so I will wrap some of this up. So I do want to talk a few minutes on debt. There's things called good debt and bad debt. And I don't have a lot of time to go through all of it, but let's just, give me some thoughts of good debt. Just yell it out.
House.
House. College. Yeah. Okay, college, house. As long as that child is going through college and finishing out and going to class every day, that's good day, right? Yeah. They stop going to class, all of a sudden that becomes but we know how to solve that bad debt, because we'll go make a trip to the school and turn that bad debt back to good debt. Right?
Those are thoughts.
Bad debt. Give me some examples of bad debt. Oh, that's the easy one, right?
Yeah.
And
Cable TV.
that's right. That's right.
Right.
That's right. So there's things that you want to have that's good debt and bad debt. I'll actually say credit card debt is good debt. Charge cards are bad debt.
Okay.
This is why I say that. Everyone needs to have a Visa, a MasterCard, an American Express, a Discover card. You need to have that, at least one. You need to have that, because what you're doing is you're building credit history. You're actually building and showing creditors that you pay your bills on time. Worst mistake that people make is they pay off their credit cards, they get so excited and they cut them up. Please don't do that. Because what you just did is you just cut up your credit history. And so what you did is you in your mind are thinking, I am no longer using this anymore. And the creditor just said, you are no longer going to use that anymore, so why would I give you any more credit? They want to see you using your credit and paying it off. And so what I would say is, if you pay off your credit card, that's fine. But just go get gas with your credit card and pay it right off. Because what you're doing is you're still using it. And so that's how you get your credit score to rise. But if you cut it up and you'll go to get a new car loan and you'll say, I know my credit score is great. They'll say, no, it hasn't. You haven't used any credit in the last 2 years. And so that's a mistake that oftentimes people make. They want to see you credit card balance no higher than 50% of what the threshold is. So if you have a $1,000 limit, don't ever take it past $500. But the best people that get the 800 credit scores or the 810 credit scores are the people that use a credit card every month from nominal purchases. They get their little points for their travel and whatnot, and they pay it right off. They go out to dinner with the family, then they go and they pay it off at the end of the month. They go get the gas, and they pay it off at the end of the month. There's actually some pretty cool credit cards out there that'll give you points, and you can start paying for other things, but just pay it off. The bad cards that they don't want to see Macy's or Dillard's or Target or Radio Shack or Best Buy, because what that is they're saying, well, all you're going to spend that on is retail stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to take a trip, you're not going to fix your car, you're not going to pay for your kids' books. And so those sort of accounts are accounts that we want to stay away from. Which is why every time, it'll happen today, you'll go to Macy's and they'll say, are you paying that with your card or your Macy's card today? Yeah. Well, did you know if you opened up your Macy's card, you can get a 30% discount? And they don't tell you that the credit is, the interest is like 29%.
Yes.
Right? So if you don't pay that off all the way, you just ate up into your discount.
Now, even if that's I don't have one, even if that's a Macy's like Visa card, is that different than just a Macy's card?
It's still, I would go back to a bank financial institution card,
Right.
Versus the Macy's Visa. You're right, on some of those store accounts, if there's you could use it as a regular card, but it's still not going to be as clean for a creditor as a Bank of America Visa or a Chase Visa. Yes, sir.
What about the Delta Airlines card?
So,
Because I can get air miles.
oh man! So you just tapped to a sweet spot for me. I just flew to India last month, and I got all these points on Delta. I went from like one status up here to now I get to go sit into the Sky Miles Club.
Exactly.
So again, similar to the Macy's, that's one where you can get all those points, but just know that Delta Visa isn't going to be the same as just a regular Visa.
Okay.
It's still going to, it won't be as bad as just a Target account, but it's still.
So is it all right to have the rewards card as a second card?
Absolutely.
Gotcha, okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's okay to have, I'm glad you asked that. It's okay to have 2 to 3 cards. But when you're that person at the store, I know no one in here is that person that pulls out their wallet and they got, which one would you like today, sir? Here's the Monday card, here's the Wednesday card, here's the Friday card, here's the Saturday card. We don't want that. We don't want that. If you're gonna cut up the cards, cut up those charge accounts. Don't cut up that Visa. Especially because the longer you have that card open, you're building that history. Yes, ma'am.
Well, back to TJ Maxx. we have to promote the TJ Maxx credit card.
Mm-hmm.
I have to right away say, would you like this on your TJ Maxx reward card?
That's right.
But